Hey, this is Mark, and welcome back to Beyond Profit, a global perspective. And as you know, I've done a lot of videos on how to put together a business plan, particularly a business plan that will allow you to take a business overseas. And no plan is complete without an export-import plan, sometimes known as an EXIM plan. And you might ask yourself, like, okay, so what if I'm doing a strategy, an entry strategy that doesn't involve exporting something, right? My answer to that is that it's always something that's involved, or at least almost always, right? If you're going to another country, let's say that you're opening a store, you're opening a restaurant, you still have to source where your products are coming from. Unless you're really sourcing everything locally, then you're going to have to figure out how to get the stuff from wherever it is in the world to wherever it is that you're going to sell it. And so this is still kind of an important thing. It's not the most exciting topic for a lot of people, and honestly, I'm not going to spend a lot of detail on it. I think there's some great sources out there that you can go and explore, but just for the purpose of creating a section that would be appropriate for a business plan, I think that what I have here will be hopefully really helpful, a short guide on how to approach that question. So let's do it. If you're getting a lot out of these videos, please like and share them. Please leave some comments below. Like if there's more stuff you want to know about, questions that you've got from me, videos you want me to make, I'm all about doing that for you. And I just might add, like, if you are interested in the style of teaching that I do and you think it would be helpful for you, then I'd invite you to come to the University of St. Mary. I run an MBA program here, and the kind of stuff that you see in these videos are the same things that I do live in a classroom. So please come join us. This is the part where we talk about EXIM strategy. You all have to reckon with this, and an understanding of some of these things I think would be very helpful for you. And so I want to spend a little time walking through it. But it's really procedural. It's more just like this is stuff that's going to help you to know as you're going through your plan how to do certain things. So first of all, let me say that I don't invent hardly anything that I say, and my source here in this case was Muhammad Taha Arshad, who published an article in 2023, and I like the way he summarized a lot of this stuff. So I changed a few things up, but a lot of it is derived from what he has to say. So, purpose. Why do we do it? We want to show how the business is going to move products across borders, ensuring compliance with regulations while optimizing cost effectiveness and efficiency, right? That's our reason, that's our goal in an EXIM plan. So, you're asking, does your business have to bring in products, or are you going to source everything locally? It's not likely that you're going to source absolutely everything locally, which means that in some way you're probably going to have to address this question. If you're using an export entry strategy, the plan should identify potential markets for export or sources for import. You need to do research to understand demand, competition, legal requirements, cultural nuances. Again, these are all parts of the business plan anyway, so it's not a stretch. These are things we have talked about before in other sections of the plan. And clear objectives and goals for the export-import activities should be set. Ideally, having performance indicators to measure success. And that's going to be probably part of your finance plan on this. It's kind of like, how much are we going to have to sell in order to be successful at this venture, right? That is what your spreadsheet ultimately is going to reveal when you get it all together. So it doesn't all have to happen in the EXIM section, but these are considerations that you're thinking about when you are doing an export entry strategy. You don't have to specify your inventory. You've got thousands of items. You're not going to have to do thousands of items in a business plan. Way too complicated, right? But what would be a better plan would be to try to select some possible partners, right? Are there firms out there that handle this stuff for you inside that country or inside our country? And how would you go about doing that, hypothetically? Let's go find somebody who would do this for you. So you'd be looking at freight forwarders, customs brokers, distributors, those kinds of things. We'll talk about what that is here in just a second. So their purpose is they navigate those complexities of international trade, they provide expertise, they facilitate smooth transactions, they help through logistics, details, paperwork. They're going to take care of that. I'm not worried about hundreds of transactions if you're running a restaurant or if you're running a store or something like that. But I am interested in, like, okay, would you use a freight forwarder? Would you use a customs broker? Is there someone that you think you might use hypothetically that's in that country? For an investor, I don't think they would expect that level of detail either. It would be enough for them to know, okay, they've done their research, they've got a freight forwarder, that's going to take care of the deal. I don't need to know all that stuff, right? So let's define some of these terms, okay? Custom broker. A custom broker focuses on the import side, so it's basically a middleman, if you will, between whoever's doing the exporting and whoever's doing the importing, right? This person does it, but they focus on whatever country it is that does the importing. And I'll give you an example to sort of illustrate this in just a second. Exporters don't need a customs broker because they're shipping out of the country. For example, you are exporting, so you wouldn't use a customs broker. You would probably use a freight forwarder. So that's a middleman between the shipper and recipient. They're more flexible. They sometimes do import stuff too, but they mostly focus on that export side. They specialize in the arrangement of cargo on behalf of shippers. They offer supply chain services, ocean, air transportation, inland transportation from origin to destination, and some freight forwarders are also customs brokers, so they can do both. So if you're importing and exporting, doing both from both ends, sometimes they can do both for you all in one firm. One of the things you need to do is select Incoterms. And what this is that it defines the trade contract responsibilities and liabilities between a buyer and a seller, right? So you have to figure out between the two of you, right, who's paying the freight costs, who's insuring the goods, who's covering the duties, right? These are expenses that happen whenever goods cross borders, and whoever you're dealing with, you have to make that sort of negotiation. Now, I don't think that you and your business plan necessarily need to do that. Okay, I'm not necessarily worried about your Incoterms. What would happen is you would go to a broker or you would go to a freight forwarder, and you would have to get together with whoever it is on the other side and say, okay, well, the three of us need to sit down and figure out, who's going to pay for this. Because if it's one side, then they might have to work in terms of their profits. Like, how are they going to adjust their margins in order to try to pay for that expense? So these are transaction costs that basically are necessary to get your stuff from one point to another. Here's a couple of examples. Right? An exporter in Minnesota wants to send a pallet of equipment to Toronto. Their freight forwarder provides a quote for the shipment and asks if the customer in Canada has a customs broker. They say yes, so the freight forwarder handles only the shipping. So they've got a customs broker to handle that import aspect. The exporter, working with the importer, will need to contractually agree on the terms of sale, including Incoterms. In this example, the freight forwarder and customs broker are two separate entities. The exporter must manage both their partnership with the forwarder as well as their transaction with the importer. Second example, same situation. You're going from Minnesota to Toronto, but in this case, the exporter says that the customer in Canada doesn't have a customs broker, so the freight forwarder asks if the exporter would like the freight forwarder's help clearing customs in Canada. The exporter says yes, which changes the transaction for the forwarder. Now, instead of just handling the shipping to Canada, the forwarder is managing the shipping plus arranging for customs clearance. This includes payment of duties, taxes, anything else associated with bringing goods into Canada from the United States. So by partnering with the Canadian customs broker, the freight forwarder offers a full service experience, so the exporter does not have to do any of the extra work on the import side. Like I said, a lot of this is negotiated through the partners above. You can summarize methods of transportation and shipping, taking into account cost, speed, and reliability, right? I suspect very few or none of you will be flying your stuff. It's super expensive. I actually did have a business plan one time where somebody was flying stuff, and it was like a personal sales thing, and he brought his gear with him, and so it kind of made sense. But yeah, it's probably more like container ships, trains, trucks, right? What are you going to use to get your stuff from point A to point B? Discuss international trade regulations and standards as they apply to your needs. How are you going to handle tariffs, taxes, and duties? I don't think EXIM needs to be a giant section of your plan. For most of you, it's probably going to be relatively small. But those are the kinds of, that's the thought process to try to make something like that happen. I mean, when we do business plans, we don't always have perfect information, and we make reasonable assumptions and guesses, and so you explain it. So that's our talk about EXIM strategy. Hopefully you'll find it really useful if you're putting together a global business plan. Look, I don't think it's the most exciting stuff in the world necessarily. I know it really turns on some other people, but I think it's something that's very important. It's something that you need to at least know a little bit about if you're engaging in international business. So hopefully this is a good starter for you. So until next time, I'll see you later.